Welcome back to Teaching Orchestra. You know, school districts are looking for fine arts teachers that can serve in cross-curricular functions. In the literature curriculum at your school, do your students read Homer's Odyssey? If they do, wouldn't it be cool to tie it in with Katie O'Hara-Labree's Voyage of Odysseus in their curriculum? Maybe you could create some slides for each of the movements here, you know, with gods or goddesses or whatever, and put on a little performance for the English department students that ties it in with their literature. That might be cool. Or maybe they're reading the Percy Jackson books and they're running across these figures in Greek mythology, and this could be a good promotional tool for your orchestra program. And you could tie it in with some co-curricular teaching to your English department, and it might be good for them and good for your orchestra. And I think your students might get a kick out of being featured at your school. If your students are studying Homer's Odyssey, or if they're reading the Percy Jackson books, they probably know that Circe is an enchantress that lives on the island of Aea. Your students may be exploring romantic relationships at this point, or maybe they have a friend in a romantic relationship, and this movement is fun because of the love triangle theme in the literature. Circe used to have a crush on King Pisces, but he didn't like her back, so she changes him into a woodpecker, right? That's what you do when stuff doesn't work out in your relationship. Well, wouldn't you know it, but she also has a crush on Odysseus. And the thing is, though, that Odysseus, he's already married to Penelope. So instead of turning Odysseus into a woodpecker, she turns most of his crew into swine. And I think that's where the scene from the movie Willow was inspired.
You're all pigs!
Anyway, Odysseus has to stay on the island with Circe for an entire year before she agrees to turn his men back into men, and then sends him on a trip to the underworld. But the underworld is going to be the subject for the next video. Here we're going to focus on Circe's island. Musically, we have a key change and switch to a major key. Now, the drama of the pigs, it's fun, but to me, the idea of this section represents how Circe attracts her guests to her island. You see, in the literature, she has this enormous loom where she weaves and she sings, and then everybody comes to see her so that she can turn them into animals or whatever. And she has this beautiful golden hair and golden eyes, and she kind of sounds like a catch to me, so I'm not sure why she has so much trouble finding a partner, but maybe she should stick to people that are single and not already married. You know, I'm not exactly Dr. Phil. I just teach orchestra, so what do I know? Maybe she's right. But in the teaching companion that's available on teachingorchestra.com, I have everybody practice some left-hand patterns. There are patterns in the introduction that are in minor patterns, and in Circe's Island, they're mostly in major patterns. So what we do is practice them back-to-back homogeneously. We all learn the minor pattern first, and then the major pattern. The half note gets the beat here, so this is fairly quick, but we can slow this down and learn it really slowly in Woodshed. The pattern also goes up to the A at some point, so we practice it this way too. Uses the entire tetrachord, and then I have them do it in a major key, again, back to back to get used to playing the different patterns. So listen, what's more complicated? Playing these patterns in eighth notes or playing them in whole notes? Well, I guess that depends on your priorities. If your priority is intonation, maybe the whole notes are harder. If you speed it up and just let the intonation go, it doesn't sound as offensive, so maybe the eighth notes would be easier than the whole notes. But consider challenging your students with sustained finger patterns. All of this is on the D string for the violins and violas. And with the cellos and basses, you can have them cross strings, no big deal. And you can work on the major pattern and minor pattern with whole notes and really be specific with the tuning. You can focus on that in this section so that when you speed it back up, it sounds really clear. It's important when you practice these finger patterns that you don't go on from the E until everybody's in tune, and the F until everybody's in tune. Same thing here for the major pattern. They're only going to be as in tune as you insist that they be. So if you go on when they're not perfectly in tune, that's the standard that you're setting for your orchestra. So just think about that. I know it takes time, but really get picky with this stuff. And then your students will establish good intonation and they'll sound really clear when they play. Putting this back in context, if we look at measure 61 and 62, it's minor. These are the two measures that have the B flats and the F naturals here with the minor patterns. And then here in 60, we have a B flat on the A string, so we've got actually a half position thing, or you might want to do it as a backwards extension. Other than those measures, it's probably not going to be a problem. And this is probably the easiest section from a technical point of view. But like Katie O'Hara-Labrie says in the program notes, when Odysseus reaches Circe's island, the main theme starts alternating between D major and D minor, representing Circe's tricky nature. Be careful of your accidentals. They are tricky, just like Circe. That's a pretty G-rated way to explain it. What Circe actually does is slip a potion into their food when they're eating a banquet to turn them into pigs, all right? And forcing Odysseus to dishonor his wife. I think that's pretty messed up. I think putting your coworker's stapler in Jell-O, that's a fun little trick. But to dose somebody and turn them into pigs, holding them ransom, that's pretty evil.
You dosed me.
Yes, I did.
So after Circe changes everybody back, she finally lets him go, and then she encourages Odysseus to check out the underworld and speak with Tiresias so that he can find his way back home. Probably good advice, right? In my next video, we're going to travel to the underworld, and I hope to see you then.